The verdict was in. Klaus Barbie, the notorious Nazi officer, was found liable for crimes against humanity. The courtroom fell silent as the judge's words hung in the air. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back to the streets of Lyon, France, where Barbie earned his nickname, the Butcher of Lyon. Klaus Barbie was a high-ranking officer in the Nazi Gestapo during World War II. He was responsible for the torture and murder of thousands of Jews, resistance fighters, and innocent civilians. After the war, Barbie vanished, only to reappear in South America, where he lived under an assumed identity. But what's even more shocking is that during this time, he was working for the CIA, providing them with intelligence on communist movements in the region. The world was a different place back then. The Cold War was in full swing, and the United States was desperate to gain an upper hand against the Soviet Union. The CIA saw Barbie as a valuable asset, despite his horrific past. They even helped him to escape to Bolivia, where he lived a comfortable life, free from prosecution. But the families of his victims never gave up hope that one day he would be brought to justice. As the years went by, Barbie's past began to catch up with him. In 1971, a Bolivian journalist discovered his true identity, and soon the news spread like wildfire. The French government issued an extradition request, but it would take years of negotiations before Barbie was finally brought back to France to face trial. The incident that sparked the investigation was the discovery of a hidden archive of Gestapo documents in Lyon, which included Barbie's signature on numerous orders for executions and deportations. The investigation was a long and arduous process. It involved sifting through thousands of documents, interviewing survivors, and tracking down witnesses. But the key discovery that broke the case was a confessed statement from one of Barbie's former colleagues, who revealed the extent of his involvement in the atrocities committed during the war. The evidence trail led investigators to a number of former Nazis who had also escaped to South America, and it became clear that Barbie was not just a lone wolf, but part of a larger network of war criminals. But here's what wasn't shown in the trial: the CIA's involvement in Barbie's escape and their subsequent attempts to cover it up. The agency had been aware of Barbie's whereabouts for years, but they chose to keep it a secret, even from the U.S. Justice Department. This raises serious questions about the extent to which the U.S. government was willing to collaborate with known war criminals in the name of national security. The trial was a dramatic and emotional event. Survivors of the Holocaust and families of the victims testified against Barbie, recounting the horrific atrocities he had committed. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence, including documents, photographs, and eyewitness accounts. But Barbie's defense team argued that he was simply following orders, and that he was not responsible for the actions of the Nazi regime as a whole. The arguments were intense, with both sides presenting passionate and convincing cases. As the trial drew to a close, the jury was left to deliberate on the evidence. The verdict was far from certain, and many observers believed that Barbie would be acquitted due to lack of direct evidence. But in the end, the jury found him liable for crimes against humanity, and he was sentenced to life in prison. The reaction was mixed, with some hailing the verdict as a victory for justice, while others argued that it was too little, too late. The decision sparked a heated debate about the nature of justice and morality. Was it right to punish a man for crimes committed over 40 years earlier? Or was it simply a case of the law catching up with a guilty individual? As we consider the verdict, we are left with a profound question: was this justice, or was it simply the law being applied? Years after the trial, the impact of the case can still be felt. The families of the victims finally had some measure of closure, but the legacy of Barbie's crimes continues to haunt us. The case also raised important questions about the accountability of governments and intelligence agencies, and the extent to which they are willing to collaborate with known war criminals. The fact that Barbie was able to work for the CIA, despite his horrific past, is a stark reminder that the pursuit of national security can sometimes lead to morally ambiguous decisions.